Hey guys, I thought I'd make a little video to go over our last test fee response. So we'll see if this works and if you can actually see anything I wrote. Your last test had a free response problem. It was actually 2014 number 1, and we changed it around a little bit. But the first problem had to do with a method called scramble word. And I gave you a couple examples of how scramble word worked. So basically what it says is if you see an A somewhere in a word, switch that with the next letter unless the next letter is also an A, in which case leave it alone. So a couple examples I gave you was tan, T-A-N, would go to T-N-A. You swap the A and the N. Aardvark has two A's in the beginning. So you see an A and you say, I better swap. But in this case, because there's two A's back to back, you don't. You go to the next letter, but then the A and the R swap. So you get Ara, and then there's an AR later. That becomes an RA. So you end up with Aradvrak. Eggs has no A in it, so it turns into eggs. I also added one of my own that they didn't have as an example. SPA, S-P-A, still stays as S-P-A. And there's a reason I brought that one up, so I'll talk about it. So what I want to do is rather than just write the code out and show you that I can do it, I want to kind of show you my thought process going through the problem. Because that's really the tough part, is getting a sense of how to start these problems, reading them, figuring out what the important parts are. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the question. It says, scrambles a given word. Well, actually, let's do this first. It sets us up with a public static string called scramble word. Scramble word. And it takes as a parameter another string called word. Let's see, am I running out of board yet, or can you still see me? And make sure that, hopefully the resolution on this is halfway decent. But if not, sorry. So here's what you get when you start. It tells you a little bit right off the bat. So before I even read anything in these notes, I'm already making note of stuff that I know I have to do where I'm going to get some points. So first of all, it's public static string. Right away, I look at this and say, oh, this method has to return a string. Guaranteed 100% has to return a string, which means guaranteed 100%, 1 point of this 9-point problem is returned a string, or returned the correct string. Which means, before doing anything else, I can just write the word return somewhere. I could say return, and because I know that it's going to be scrambling a word, maybe I'll say return S word for scrambled word. Now, if I know I'm going to return a scrambled word, I want to return S word, it's got to exist. So maybe I go all the way to the top and I write, I'm going to have a string called S word. And for the time being, I'm just going to make it equal to blank. So I put two quotes next to each other, and that makes an actual string with nothing in it. So there's a difference between saying string X and string Y equals quote, quote. The difference being here I have X is a null pointer, meaning I can refer to something in memory, but I'm not doing it. Whereas this says Y is an actual pointer. It's an arrow to a place in memory that just happens to have nothing in it. It seems like kind of a little teeny tiny distinction, but it's very important. I can work with Y. I can treat it like a string that has a value. I can't do that with X. So if I said something like X plus equals cat, I'll end up getting an error because I'm trying to add on to nothing. But if I said Y plus equals cat, no problem. So that's an important distinction. I just wanted you to know why I started out with that. Now, keep in mind, I could go back when I'm working on this and make a change up here. It's probably a good idea to do this in pencil for these problems so you can go back and erase things. But right off the bat, I'm framing out my problem. I still haven't even read it. I still don't really know what I got to do. But I know I definitely have to return a scrambled word. And if I'm going to return it, I definitely have to have a place to keep it. So I found two elements that have to be in my problem. So let's actually read it and see what we're supposed to do. Scramble is a given word. At param word, the word to be scrambled. So I'm saying this is a thing that's going to be scrambled. You do not, absolutely do not, have to ask the user, for a word. That's a waste of your time, and not only that, you'll get penalized for doing it. When a method says word contains the thing to scramble, then that's what you scramble. You don't ask for something new. That's your information right there. Who cares where it came from? It's being given to you. Return the scrambled word. Possibly equal to word. That's an important thing to note. Eggs doesn't change. Spa doesn't change. So S word may end up being the exact same thing as word. That's something that it's pointing out for you. Precondition. Word is either an empty string or contains only uppercase letters. So it's saying, hey, you know what? It's only going to be uppercase. You don't need to worry about lowercase. That's helpful. And it's also saying it's empty or contains letters, meaning it can't be a null like I showed you before. You don't have to worry about trying to talk to it and getting an error message. Postcondition. The string returned was created from word as follows. The word was scrambled beginning at the first letter and continuing from left to right. Two consecutive letters consisting of A followed by a letter that was not A were swapped. Letters were swapped at most once, which means if I take A and B and swap them, I'm done with these two letters. I move on. I don't say, oh, now I have A and C and swap them again. Otherwise, you would just have an A trickle all the way through your word. Now, there's another kind of clue that they put in here, and that's why we're spending time reading it. It says, the string returned was created from word. Created from word. This is an important thing to know about strings. If I were to say string x equals cat, I cannot change this. I can't make that any different. I have a reference to this. This is now in place in memory, cat. I can't edit that place in memory anymore. Now, what I could do is I could say, hey, forget it. X equals dog. But that doesn't change this. Instead, it makes a new place in memory with dog in it and just changes the arrow to point there. This is also really important because if you try to do things like x dot char at, let's say char at 1. So, hey, x dot, follow the reference. So I'm talking over here. What's the character at 1? 0, 1. That's an O. It sends back an O. I can't. I can't say that equals A. I can't do that. A return statement works one way. This method returns information. It doesn't set information. So if I were to ask you your birthday, I couldn't say, when's your birthday? And you say, October 10th. I can't say, that equals November 2nd. That doesn't change your birthday. It's just me acting like a lunatic. This is a programmer acting like a lunatic. All right, let's actually try to write this program now, or this method. So, I know I got to go through all the letters of the word and check for A's, which means I know I need some kind of loop. I gotta say, for each letter in the word. For each letter in the word, I gotta look at each one individually, because I gotta find out if it's an A. If it's an A. Oh, but there's an important part. Because if it's an A, I have to make sure the next letter isn't an A. And the next letter is not an A. So if it's an A and the next letter is not an A, what do I want to do? swap places.